If you've been lifting consistently, the last thing that you want to hear is you don't even look like you lift. After coaching tons of clients through this exact dilemma, I was able to figure out why they couldn't make gains and then exactly how to fix their mistakes. Once I did, they were all able to add at least 10 pounds of muscle to their frames. I'm going to break down the exact step-by-step framework that I use to correct their mistakes so you could avoid the years of trial and error and start building muscle right now. And if you're someone that wants to put this plan into action immediately, but is worried that their busy schedule is preventing them from making progress, I've put together a workout split designed to maximize your results with just 2 workouts per week. You can grab it for free with the link in the description below. The first mistake that I wanted to start off with is chasing being lean year-round. If you're spending all of your energy all of the time in a deficit in order to shed unwanted body fat, that leaves little to no time for you to spend gaining new muscle. If you're not consuming enough calories to facilitate new muscle growth, or let alone maintain your current weight, then your body will start burning excess mass to compensate for that lack of energy. No matter how hard you're training, you're not going to be able to swap out your fat tissue for new and improved muscle mass, especially if you're super lean or are currently getting there. It's primed for survival, and at some point, it's going to have to make a trade-off between burning fat and adding new muscle. Once you realize that, the only viable solution is to shift into a slight surplus so you could start giving your body the energy that it needs to cultivate mass.
We've been through this, okay? I'm cultivating mass.
Now, obviously, you don't need to let yourself turn into a morbidly obese blob, but the takeaway here is to start eating 10 to 15% above your maintenance calories until you get to the point where you're uncomfortable with your body fat percentage. Just know that if you're not willing to gain a little bit of fat along the way and are someone that likes to cut, as soon as you can't see your ab definition anymore, you're going to slow down the process by a ton. For most lifters, especially the ones that are already past their newbie gain stage, you don't need to be gaining any more than 2 pounds a month of total body weight to make measurable progress. So now that you've figured out that wanting to be lean year-round is actually killing your gains, what causes people to take that approach in the first place? The reason why so many guys are hell-bent on getting that lean in the first place is a direct result of social media influence. Just know that when you're scrolling through social media, you're not just seeing the top 1% of the fitness industry on your feed, you're seeing the top 10th or even 100% of the general population. And that doesn't even begin to factor in that all of these shredded influencer posts are conceived with excessive lighting, a pre-posing pump, plenty of calculated angles, and even a lot of post-production editing. Not to mention how it actually feels to be that lean all of the time. And I'm not talking 12% lean. I'm talking that sub 10% range that you see being paraded at the top of your feed. At that level, you'll have to deal with constant hunger every single day, all day, decreased physical and mental energy, severely decreased strength, not just in the gym, but also in the bedroom as well. And that definitely doesn't sound worth it to me, and I know it doesn't to you either. And look, if you're walking around in that 15% body fat range, you're already in the top 1 to 2% of the general population, assuming you've built a solid foundation for your physique already. And even that 18 to 20% range that I recommend bulking to in the first place puts you in a much leaner spot than the average civilian without being at a medically unhealthy body fat level. Now, obviously, you're not required to bulk all the way up to 20% to make consistent gains, because actually verifying your specific body fat percentage is a very tenuous process, and even the most advanced testing systems have a large margin of error. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're willing to deal with the slight discomfort of bulking up to a higher body fat percentage without going overboard, then you'll be in a position to stay in that surplus longer than somebody that's stopping at that 15% range. And that's also why it's so important to manage your bulking phases with the same discipline as you were a cutting phase. Because the more that you monitor and manage your calorie intake, the more confident that you could be that you're not gaining excess fat that could have otherwise been avoided with a more calculated approach. It's also important to note that once you shift into that surplus and start to look a little bit softer than usual, not all of that is even body fat in the first place. A lot of that excess mass is just additional food volume and then excess water retention, from that increased food volume. But let's say you're someone that's already committed to eating in a slight surplus to make gains. What could be going on inside of the gym that's bringing your progress to a halt? If you want to look like you lift, then you have to train like somebody that has the physique that you want to build for yourself. So at the end of the day, if you've fallen into the trap of trying to chase the optimal training program and micromanage the execution of every single lift that you do, but you're not training anywhere close to failure, then all of that extra work was for absolutely nothing. Towards the end of your sets, there needs to be an involuntary loss of speed in some range of motion, despite the fact that you're telling yourself you're training with 100% effort. If you're not in that 1 to 2 rep range, give or take, for the majority of your lifts, especially when you start to become slightly more advanced, then your body's not going to have the incentive to grow new muscle. It'll be a lot harder to make measurable progress and come back to the gym stronger. And I'm definitely not saying that you have to take every single set to all-out failure, because I wouldn't recommend that at all. But if you're not willing to train to failure at least every once in a while, then you're not going to be as confident at knowing what 1 to 2 reps short of failure feels like. You might be misinterpreting that as well. So if you think you're training to failure, but in reality you have 1 or 2 reps in a tank, and now you're telling yourself you want to train 1 to 2 reps short of failure, you might actually be training as high as 5 reps in reserve, which is a complete detriment to any training program. It's also important to note that chasing other factors like muscle burn, fatigue, sweating, and getting a pump don't play any account into whether you had a successful workout or not. You can experience each and every one of those doing high rep body weight circuit style training sessions, but that doesn't mean that you checked every box for driving hypertrophy. If your muscles haven't been pushed to a place that they haven't been before, whether that's adding an extra rep or a slight increase in weight, then your body won't be incentivized to build back new lean muscle tissue as a result on that attack on its survival that it sees weight training as. But what if you are training hard? Why do so many men still struggle to look like they lift despite the fact that they have their intensity and diet locked in? I've audited a lot of clients' pre-existing training plans, and the most common mistake I see throughout all of them was an overemphasis on certain muscle groups, specifically chest and biceps. And I'm sure this doesn't come off as too much of a surprise for you, considering that videos regarding chest training and bicep training are often the ones that get the most attention online. It's also worth noting that if you look around in your average gym, you're most likely going to see that the most common exercises being performed at any given moment are either a bench press, a chest fly, or some sort of bicep curling variation. But why do so many lifters fall down this rabbit hole then? I thought about it for a little bit, and honestly, when I was a kid, I knew absolutely nothing about bodybuilding or weight training, but every single time that I saw someone on TV work out that was jacked to any capacity, they were always either doing some sort of bench press or bicep curl. Wonder if there's any correlation with that. And come to think of it, I'm pretty sure I had no idea what a tricep or a deltoid was when I was that young, but I sure as hell knew what a bench press and bicep curl were because I would see it everywhere. That kind of subconscious programming really sticks with you. So of course, a lot of guys are prone to training that way as they get older. But what they don't realize is that even though they're considered showy muscles, the chest and the biceps don't even make up the majority of your upper body mass. And that doesn't include the amount of people that forget that they also have to train their legs too. But in reality, all 3 heads of the deltoid combined end up being the muscle group with the most amount of upper body mass. So regardless of the fact that you should still be training your chest and biceps hard, if you don't put that same amount of focus into every single muscle group, you're not going to look as full and well-rounded as you want to. And if you're someone that has weak points in your physique, like most of us, it's time to start addressing them immediately so you could actually start to look like you lift. And after auditing a few training programs and adjusting them so every muscle group had equal focus, there were still a few other elements that I had to address. I ended up finding that even in training programs where everything was equally addressed, there were still plenty of lifters who decided to switch up their workouts on a constant basis. And this one is definitely a silent gains killer, especially when nowadays everyone is always scrolling through social media and is more susceptible to shiny object syndrome. You know how it is. You'll see some guy twice your size breaking down some new and improvement version of a movement that you've never even seen seen before, and then you'll automatically look at them and assume that that exercise directly contributed to their size and strength. In reality, what most people don't know is that exercise that they're doing in that present moment wasn't what built the foundation of their muscle gains. A lot of these quote-unquote science-based optimal exercises were created with the sole intention of garnering more views and engagement. In reality, you should be making the majority of your gains perfecting the same compound and isolation movements. Doesn't matter whether it's free weights, machines, cables, or anything in between. You need to pick movements that you know will get you results and get really good at them, and then do them for a long period of time. It sounds boring, but that's the fastest and most efficient way to make results without wondering whether your program is working in the first place. And if you're coming back to the gym stronger on a regular basis, then you have absolutely no reason to start switching out your workouts because you saw someone else do it. If the movement that you've decided to do is already tried and true for decades and you're progressively overloading with it, then it's obviously working and there's no reason to switch it up. But a lot of guys will hop from program to program before they've even given themselves enough time to start seeing whether their program is working or not. Constantly changing up your workouts makes it extremely difficult to track progressive overload, and therefore it makes it a lot harder to make measurable progress that you're in control of managing at all times. And that's not to say once you pick a workout plan, you're stuck with it for life, but you also can't argue with the fact that if you're doing a different rowing variation every single week based on what's trending, you'll have no idea whether you're actually progressing or even becoming proficient in that workout's execution. Another reason why a lot of people might be switching up their workouts all the time is because they're falling for the concept of muscle confusion. Simply put, it's a myth that your muscles have a mind of their own and will stop responding if you continue to perform the same workouts with the same rep ranges and the same form. And honestly, saying it out loud makes it sound even more stupid than it already is. Because in reality, all your muscles experience are the tension that they're placed under, and if that tension is sufficient, it'll trigger a growth response. So forget chasing variety because you want to copy what your favorite influencer is doing or because you're trying to shock your muscles into new growth. Just find exercises that work best for you and get extremely good at them so you could focus on progressive overload and making measurable long-term gains. So if social media is causing lifters to constantly change their routine up, what else could be influencing them to pick the wrong routine in the first place? So throughout the years of coaching clients and seeing guys in the gym train, every time I ask a lifter why they're doing a certain movement that's clearly a detriment to their progress, it's always chalked up to something like, but C-Bum does this or Sam Sulek does that. And I get why. You see guys that are that jacked and then you idolize them. And then you see them post their workouts online and you see it as free sauce. So not only are you making the mistake of program hopping when what you were doing before was working just fine, but now you're convinced that you're going to get the same or similar results as them because that's what they're doing to advance their training. Obviously, those guys are training hard and what they're doing is working for them, but that doesn't mean it's automatically going to work for you. All of these pro influencers have elite genetics, tons of experience in the gym, and are pharmaceutically incentivized to spend loads of their time training. And because of that, they can handle intense amounts of volume without it interfering with their recovery that the average lifter like you and I have no business doing. And that doesn't take into account that, especially with their elite genetics, they could train in a way that would otherwise be suboptimal for the average lifter. And even with that suboptimal training, they'll still get results that you and I will never see in our lifetimes. These guys are in the top 100% of the fitness bracket. So while it could feel inspiring to copy what they're doing because it's working for them and you idolize them, don't expect it to have the same results for you. I hate to end the video on what seems like a negative note, but in reality, my message couldn't be further from that. Once you realize that you're on your own path and what works for others might not work for you, you'll come to realize that you could start placing your focus on being the best version of yourself possible, and nobody can take that away from you. If you've addressed all of these mistakes that I've covered today and then apply the solutions to your training program, you'll be in a position to make life-changing gains just like my clients did as soon as we corrected their mistakes. And if you found this video helpful and want an even deeper dive on all of these concepts while having direct access to my support, be sure to join my free school community, Muscle Truth University, with the link in the description below. I'll catch you guys on the next one.